Hello everybody, my name is Zach, aka the Weather Gamer, bringing you week 7 of Mount Silver. Chicago Charizard took on Frost and his LA Latios. So Frost just never could get connected with me, and we finally battled, and it was at a time where I couldn't record, which means I have to post comment. And you guys know I hate that. And that's why I am going forward, no longer, I'm scheduling for the times that I'm available when I can record, and if people can't get available with me, then, you know what, sorry. I schedule weeks in advance to try and get things lined up, and I've had enough of it. I've had enough of people jawing me around and all that. I get it with the Europeans and the time zone being off, but people that are an hour or 2 hours behind me or something like that, it's not that hard to schedule. Respond to DMs, pick a time, and let's go. But anyways, it's Frost versus me. He did bring the Slowbro, which I thought was a possibility over Infinite, and Cragonal was the one that surprised me. I thought he was going to bring Ariados, and he ended up bringing Cragonal. I went ahead and led the Gren. Turns out he leads Coco. I didn't want to reveal that I was Scarfed Gren at this time. I could have just U-turned, but I didn't want to give him the slow pivot momentum, so I went for the hard switch. I go ahead and switch into Zygarde, predicting the electric move or a U-turn, and he goes straight into Ferrothorn, which, while it sucks, wasn't terrible. I knew I could probably set up in front of this thing. I go for the sub on a Toxic, which worked out very nicely for me. I go ahead and dance. Slowbro comes out, which I kind of figured. I kind of wish I had Toxic'd instead of danced here. But I Toxic'd the Slowbro. I wanted to see if there was an Ice Beam. There was, but now I've got Slowbro on a timer. I can't do much to Slowbro, and Zygarde is still too important in this match for me, especially if I can get the sub up. So I go Arcanine here, get myself poisoned, and I go for a Crunch. And I wish, because I knew I was afraid of the Lando, I think, but I wish the Lando hadn't come, or I wish I had gone for the Wild Charge, because the Wild Charge killed the Slowbro if it stayed in on me, and also killed Mr. Vish if a Crunch did 38%, and that's a neutral hit. This Mr. Vish is getting put down by Arcanine. I wish I'd Wild Charged in there. It would have been so much better off, because I end up going into Kamala, and I have to sack this thing just to take the Fishious Rend, and then go into Tangrowth. I couldn't go into Tangrowth direct because I got two-shot, and Kamala was the least useful member based on his team composition. I mean, he had rocks with Pharaoh Orlando, but he didn't have webs, he didn't have T-spikes. So I didn't necessarily need the spin, and I also could defog with Swellow if need be. So goes for Fishious Rend, doesn't kill, I Giga Drain, heal up. And right here, I wish I'd gone for... Oh no, I did go for Knock. Get rid of this thing's leftovers. I'm not Spadef, but he knocks me off. I go for a Toxic. I was risking a Freeze Dry there, but at the same time, knocking this thing off also helped. And then, getting a Toxic off on this helped because I could start Toxic chipping down things. I'm not going to stay in and take the Ice move, though, here. I go into Arcanine on a Recover, so good neutral play there. And again, I wish I had just Flare Blitzed, or, something, but Wild Charge, Mr. Vish goes down, in comes Tapu Koko. I switch into Tangrowth, and this is where I made a very critical mistake. I should have stayed in with Arcanine and Wild Charged, because even though it was resisted, and even though it's resisted in terrain, the banded Wild Charge was still going to put about 40% damage onto the Koko. And that damage would have been huge, and Tangrowth wouldn't have been as beaten up, and Arcanine would have resisted the the hit from the Dazzling Gleam from Coco. I think why I saved it was because the Ferrothorn, I was afraid of beating the Ferrothorn without Arcanine, which was a mistake, because after the Wild Charge and Life Orb damage, this thing would have been severely beat down. I would have still had Tang. I go Gren, which this time signals the Scarf, but at that point I had no better option. I U-turn on the Pharaoh coming in, going into Zygarde, and I believe I sub again on the Lando. I do sub on the Lando. I go for a Dance, get back to neutral. Earthquake breaks the sub. I know that I can't just sit and sub, so I go for the 1,000 Arrows and luckily get a very good crit, taking out 69%. Nice. Which really chipped this Lando down. I know an Earthquake's gonna hurt, 65%, making me think Banded. And then I go ahead and take out with another 1,000 Arrows. The Slowbro I'm not doing anything to at neutral, but Zygarde had kind of run its course. I didn't have another chance to set it up, so I went and brought it back. I U-turn on the Slowbro because I want to see if this thing's going to go for something like Thunderbolt, and turns out I was wrong. It scalds. Arcanine goes down, and at this point I am in a lot of trouble trying to beat this Ferrothorn, especially with 2 choice locked Mons, so I just start pivoting U-turns around to try and take this thing out. I go for the Dark Pulse here. He already knows that I'm Scarfed, so I go Swellow on the knock. I lose my Specs, which actually plays out pretty nicely. Goes into Slowbro as I Boom Burst. And by the way, this pisses me off to no end. I know I will say it at times to people, but that's usually to friends, and it's usually when it's 1 Mon left. And I've been wrong when I've done that too, because sometimes they come back and they counter sweep. Don't say GG just because you think it's over, because it's not. I could have pulled this back potentially. And I U-turn to take that out. I go Gren. The Ferrothorn comes out. I U-turn again. Go into Swellow. Toxic is not... I'm not too concerned about it. I lost my Specs, but I go for Heat Wave, which I don't know if he knew I had Heat Wave, but I end up Heat Waving and taking out Cryogonal, and had I still had my Specs, that Cryogonal was dead, and Pharaoh would have died to it as well. I go for Hydro because that's the best I got. He Power Whips, and I lose. But it was not GG at turn 25. It was not. Had he switched into Pharaoh on the Heat Wave, that Pharaoh would have been probably obliterated. Cryogonal would have come in, gotten Heat Wave multiple times, and then I could have just scarfed myself into Dark Pulse or something else, and I would have beaten the Cryogonal down, and it would have been a 1-0 loss to Coco potentially. But it was not GG at turn 25, and that really, really pissed me off. And he asked if I was Scarf Grunt with Gunk, and truth be told, I wasn't. I said yeah, just because I was pissed at the time. But I actually wasn't Choice Scarf with Gunk Shot. I should have been. I didn't think about that. I should have brought Gunk Shot. That would have been great. If I had that, I would have just stayed in on the Coco turn 1 probably, and paid because I would have Gunk Shotted the Pharaoh on accident. But I don't know. That was a closer game. I could have potentially won. Puts me at 2-5 now, with 3 to go, so there's no way I'm making playoffs at this point. It's officially over. I'm going to play my match versus Savage next week, and then I may or may not be uploading the last 2 weeks of Mount Silver. It just depends on what's going on, but I'll keep you guys informed on that. So thank you guys for watching. I know this video is short because, again, I had to post comment, so I'll see you guys next week.